Okay, what we're going to talk about today are hospital bullets and pain bullets. Now, these are bullets that you will see for sale on eBay. In fact, if you go look today, you'll see a bunch of them for sale, anywhere from like $10 to $50 a piece. And what people say they are Civil War mini balls and 6.9 caliber round balls that soldiers would use to help alleviate the pain when they were going under surgery. When they're having the arms cut off and sewed back up, or legs or whatever, that surgeons would actually take one of these things and say, hey, Mr. Soldier, I'm getting ready to cut your leg off, it's gonna hurt. Why don't you take one of these little round lead balls that weigh 1 ounce, put it in your mouth, lay your head back, because you're gonna be laid out on a table just like this. Put your head back and try not to swallow it, because if you swallow it, it's going to make the surgery very difficult when you're gagging and coughing and choking and flopping all around on the table. Do you think a surgeon would do that? No. No one in their right mind would put a 1 ounce lead ball in their mouth when they're undergoing any type of surgery, or in fact, just laying on their back, because it's a tremendous choking hazard. But let me just say, prior to the Civil War, like during the Revolutionary War and up until about 1840, maybe a little bit later than that, there was no general anesthesia, okay? That in fact, they would cut your arm off or your leg off, and it hurt really bad, and people would have to hold you down, and it was very traumatic for everyone, because of course you were screaming in pain. The doctor had just minutes to get the thing cut off and sewed back up, and everyone holding you down was completely horrified by having to do that. And they did have things for you to bite down on. In fact, one of the tools in a surgeon's kit would be a leather strap, and they would put a big leather strap in your mouth so you could bite down on that, and that would help alleviate the pain somewhat. But they would never put a 1 ounce lead round ball in your mouth and hope you don't swallow it. So there is a little bit of truth to biting down on something when you're going under some type of surgery, and that's fact. I mean, you can read about that in the accounts during the period. But by the time the Civil War rolled around, 1860s, we had general anesthesia. I mean, we had chloroform and ether. Put a rag over your mouth and you were out. You felt no pain. In fact, 95% of all surgeries performed during the American Civil War were performed under general anesthesia. I mean, you can go right to the website. It's the National Museum of Civil War Medicine, and they'll tell you right there, 95% of all the major surgeries done in the Civil War, the soldier was completely unconscious. As unconscious as if you went to the hospital today to have surgery done on your tonsils or whatever. I mean, they still pull out tonsils, but you're completely unconscious. Yeah, they still had to hold you down, because even though you're, sedated and unconscious, you could be still moving around a little bit. Just like today, when they do surgery on you, they strap you down so you don't move at all. But you did not feel the pain. Those soldiers never felt any pain. There'd be no reason for them to bite down on a 1 ounce round lead ball stuck in their teeth when they're on their back. Just never happened. 95% all surgeries done under general anesthesia. Now, that leads us to, well, why are there so many bullets that have been chewed up? I mean, obviously that's been chewed. No doubt it's been chewed. Like I said, I have hundreds of these things in my collection. I'm going to tell you what happens. Some of them are chewed by rodents. Now, you can usually tell because they have little sharp teeth, and you can see where they're just chewed right through the bullet. Squirrels, mice, stuff like that. But the majority are chewed by pigs, because pigs, of course, root in the ground. That's how they feed. They root, they look for tubers and grubs and worms and different types of roots, and they look for nuts, like acorns and hickory nuts, both of which are very hard. Well, acorn's not too hard. I could bite an acorn and break it. There's no way I could ever bite a hickory nut and break it. But pigs, very strong jaws, very strong teeth, chomp, 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 right through, no problem at all. In fact, a pig can eat a person, bones and all, no problem. So, pigs are out looking around in the fields and in the woods, and got to remember, 150 years ago, there were pigs running everywhere. That's just the way it was. And so they're all rooting around looking for these hickory nuts and whatnot. And they come across a little round 1 ounce slug that is, surprise, surprise, almost the same size as a hickory nut. And I'm going to show you close-ups here in a minute. In fact, let's do this. Right now, let's take a look at a little video clip I made. This was like 3 or 4 years ago that I made this clip. And it's a field where there are pigs running loose in it. Now they're fenced in, but it's like 50 acres and they're just running loose. But they have turned over every inch of dirt and grass in that field. It looks like someone has plowed it. This was done by pigs looking for nuts and grubs and anything to eat. I mean, that's how they operate. They shovel like that and they just look for stuff that's buried in the ground. So while you're looking at that, it's only going to be about 30 seconds long. I'm going to set another camera up over here and we'll look at some close-ups of these chewed bullets and the hickory nuts and a pig's jaw with teeth and how these teeth fit perfectly, I mean perfectly, into the indentations of these bullets. So check this out and I'll go get the camera and set it up over here. This is the field that has pigs running loose in it. You can see how they have rooted all the sod up and it looks like it's been plowed. And what they're looking for is grubs, nuts, or anything else that might be buried in the ground, and that's how they forage. So when they're rooting around in there, if they pick up a mini ball, they might think that's a hickory nut. And they'll take that thing and they'll chew on it and possibly swallow it. A little while later, out it comes, back into the field. And then we come along with a metal detector, find the bullets with the chew marks on it, and a lot of people think those are hospital bullets. Well, I hope that was of interest to you. You can see how the pigs completely turned over the dirt in the field looking for acorns and hickory nuts. So before we get to the close-ups, there are a couple things I forgot to mention, so let's go ahead and take care of those right now. First, what does bite the bullet actually mean? The people who sell these things say, well, it means to bite the bullet, but that's not exactly or actually what it means at all. If you look it up in the dictionary, to bite the bullet is basically to get down to business or to do something difficult. And that comes from having to bite the cartridge or bite the bullet, which is actually the cartridge, the paper cartridge that were issued to soldiers during the Civil War and even 100 years before. Mini balls did not come like this, you know, in just a little bag full of mini balls with a powder horn. They came wrapped in paper with their own powder charge attached. So when you went into battle, you would have to take the wrapped paper tube with a bullet in it, and you'd bite the end off, bite the bullet to expose the powder. Then you take the gunpowder, you'd pour it down the barrel of the musket, squeeze out the mini ball normally, and put it in the barrel and ram it home with a ramrod. That is what the meaning of to bite the bullet means. You're going into battle, you're going to have to get down and get serious about something. You're putting the bullet into the gun, biting the paper cartridge, not the bullet. Now, one other thing about these bullets that I forgot to mention that most people don't realize even happened is that all these bullets that were pre-manufactured into these cartridges with the gunpowder were coated in tallow or animal fat. They actually took these things, dipped them in animal fat, usually beef or mutton fat, to make them slippery. And they wanted to have them slippery so that when you went to load the musket, it would easily go down the barrel, and you could slide it out of the paper, because you would take it like this and you'd squeeze it and it would push it out of the paper normally, with a rifled musket anyway. Round balls, I guess sometimes they could actually take the entire thing and jam it, all the paper down and stuff. After they pour the powder in, then you could just jam the paper down as wadding. But with mini balls, you couldn't do that. Now, these things are laying all around the battlefields and all around the farms and anywhere there's Civil War soldiers were around, and they are little lead balls with animal fat all over them, which probably smell very, very delicious to a pig or anything that's hungry. So that's probably another reason why pigs like them so much. Not just rooting in the ground for them, but because when they did find them, they smelled like something very delicious to eat. All right, so I think that covers it. So we've got bite the bullet. Doesn't really mean biting the bullet. It means opening the cartridge. They're coated in pig fat. Pigs love to eat things that are in the ground, especially like hickory nuts and things like that. 95% of all surgeries during the Civil War were done under general anesthesia. It is an established fact. In fact, there are none, zero accounts, official accounts, of any soldier during any surgery actually having a bullet to bite on for pain. 0 accounts of that from the time period. The only time you hear about that is much, much later, like within the last 50 years, they talk about that. But that just never happened. You will not see any account of that from the American Civil War. Although people will say, well, I remember reading it, and I'll go look for it, and I'll show it to you. They won't, because it never happened. They'll reference somebody's blog from 10 years ago. So let's go ahead and do the close-ups now. What do you say? It's time. So let's take a look at the bullets here. These are the ones that I have with the tooth marks in them. You can see I have probably a dozen or two right here on the table, and I probably have hundreds of them in my collection. I just haven't really separated them all out. This is a pig jaw with a couple teeth, and one thing I want you to look at is how massive those teeth are compared to a human's tooth. And I'm going to show you something. These teeth actually fit right down in the grooves that are on these bullets, or the tooth marks. Take this one, for example, this little one. Look how this fits right here. The lines right up almost perfectly. And that could have been the tooth that chewed on this, you would think. Even that one is closed. So you can see that a pig tooth is very similar, or is actually, what bites these things. And the ones that are, like, look, even this one will probably line up with it, more or less. Yes, even that does. Lines right up with it. Look at that. And the ones that are really chewed up would be chewed like in here, on the flat parts of these teeth. And again, these teeth are so massive and strong because they have to break apart these hickory nuts. Hickory nuts like this, almost the same size as a musket ball. Look at that. Picture it coated in, the musket ball coated in bacon fat, or rather beef tallow. Same thing. They can crunch these no problem and break them with no difficulty whatsoever. Same way with a mini ball. They can flatten these things right out and put the tooth marks on them. Now, there is no possible way that a human can make these marks like this. You know how I know? Because I have tried it. I mean, I've read online where they say that people can actually make these marks. But that is absolutely a bunch of hooey. There's no possible way for a human like me or you to make those marks. And there's an easy way to find out. If you're brave, or you just want to know the truth, take a mini ball, okay? Or a musket ball, like a 6.9 caliber musket ball, or a regular mini ball. Put it in your mouth, bite down on it, and see what happens. You're going to find out that before you can make much of a mark at all, I mean, before you even barely scratch the surface of this thing, that you are going to be in a tremendous amount of pain. It's been proven that when you bite down on something that is as hard as a solid lead ball, that your teeth will shatter. A human's teeth will shatter when they bite down on this. If you don't believe it, just try it. I mean, that's the key to everything. Everything I've said before now, you don't have to believe. But try to bite down on a musket ball and see what happens. And if you say to me, gee, I don't have a musket ball, go to Walmart and buy yourself a 1-ounce lead sinker. Like any of these sinkers. These are lead sinkers from Walmart or wherever for fishing. And bite down on one of these. They're lead. They're just about like a musket ball. And you'll see that you cannot bite down and make a good tooth mark on it. You just don't have the strength in your teeth, and it will hurt so bad that you'll say, Mr. Bo, you were right. Trust me. Now, before you say, well, what about split shot, Mr. Bo? This is a piece of split shot, okay? And it is made so that you can bite down on it and close it, but it's only because it has a hinge right here. You can see it's hinged, so you're really only closing a little tiny piece of lead. And lead is fairly soft when it's like that, so you can do that with your fingers. I probably can't open it with my fingers. Yeah, a little bit. But with a tooth, you can do that because you're only moving a little tiny hinge of lead. So, I hope that makes some sense to you guys. The definitive proof is to get yourself a piece of lead and bite down on it. And don't say, oh, well, I don't want to put lead in my mouth and get lead poisoning. You're not going to get lead poisoning by putting a little lead sinker in your mouth. Most of the lead poisoning, well, I better stop right there. Another thing I just recently read online is that people say, well, when lead's been in the ground a while, it gets harder. Well, you think it really does get harder because if you think about it, if that was true, the lead that we find from like the Roman times would be like as hard as a diamond. So that's not true. But I did recently read where they say, well, you know, the patina on the lead bullets can make it a little bit harder. I noticed that when I tried to bite down, it was a little bit harder. Well, all you have to do is take your knife like this and take the bullet and just give it a little scratch, okay, and you'll see something. You'll see something very amazing. That white patina is so thin, it's unbelievable. There's no way that would have any effect whatsoever on the hardness of that bullet. I mean, look how easy it comes off. Same way with a sinker. I mean, lead is just, you know, lead. So, go ahead, get yourself a sinker, get yourself a mini ball, chow down on it, and tell me what you think. I have no doubt that you'll be in agreement with me, or, well, you'll never be you'll never be convinced of anything. So I hope that makes a little bit of sense to you guys. You know, tallow covered or fat covered bullets that look just like hickory nuts, they're chewed up by pigs, are why we have all these bullets running around or rolling around out there that have all these tooth marks in it. A human cannot make these tooth marks. Go ahead and try it. Don't believe anything you read online. Don't believe your dentist. I've seen reports where guys have had papers saying, from their dentist saying, that's 100% made by human teeth. Bull malarkey. Just goes to show you how smart some dentists can be. Just bite down on it. Trust me, you become a believer immediately.